Welcome to A Slice of Therapy. This podcast was created with Anchor. And if you've not heard of Anchor, let me explain. It's free. It's a really easy way to make a podcast. And it helps me because I can just do this every day directly into my phone, because there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. So if you fancy making a podcast too, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. There are 6 things that we can never know and never see. And yet all of us, me included, will at some point during our day or our week, we will kid ourselves that we know them and have seen them. And we convert those guesses, those interpretations, into facts and treat them as facts, even though they're not. And then what we do is we will allow them to drive our behaviour and our thoughts going forward. And we do that in the moment, but we also do that as well in terms of our lives. Generally, we'll create whole beliefs based on things that we believe we know and believe that we can see or saw at the time. And so what I'm going to do in this episode is take you through 6 things that we think that we can know or see, but we can't really know or see at all, because it would be impossible to know or see it. And when we think that we can know it, and when we think that we've seen it, what actually happened was that we made a guess. And it's not knowledge, it's supposition. And yet that guess can really drive us moving forward. We can base so much of our decisions, our actions, our behaviour, our thought processes based on this thing that was actually only a guess. So let me tell you what those 6 things are that we can't possibly know. The first one is what other people think. We'll often tell ourselves that we know what other people think. Oh, he just thinks he's the bee's knees. Well, that's just a guess, isn't it? It might even be an accurate guess. But the key thing is we can't know it, because we can't know what other people are thinking. We only have access to our own thoughts. We certainly don't have access to anybody else's. And so when we believe that we know what other people think, in actual fact, we don't at all. It's just a guess. Number 2, what other people want. Again, we'll jump to conclusions on this. We'll believe that we know what other people want. Oh, she just wants to run the show round here. Well, might be accurate. Might be lots of other things as well that person wants. Whatever it is, we can't know. Because again, we can't get in someone's mind. And even if they tell us what they think, even if they tell us what they want, think of it yourself. Have you ever told somebody what you're thinking and it wasn't actually what you're thinking? Oh yes, I'm having a lovely time at your party, we might say, while having a really terrible time at the party. And so even when somebody tells you what they think or tells you what they want, it might not be true. How many people do you know, for instance, who tell you what they want, and yet secretly they weren't telling you what they wanted, but were trying to guess what you wanted and tell you that? And so we just can't know these things, what other people think and what other people want. The third thing we can't know is whatever is to this or to that. That again is an interpretation. You know, we'll say things like, they're walking too slow, or they're walking too fast. Now, obviously, there are sometimes situations where something can be to this or to that in terms of getting a particular outcome. You might only need so much sugar, for example, and anything more than that makes the recipe awful. But in general terms, to this or to that, it kind of presupposes that we know the exact speed that other person should be walking. The fourth thing is what will happen in the future. If you look at the news on any given day, you'll see lots of people who know what's going to happen in the future. Or so they say. There's economists, there's politicians. At the moment, there's epidemiologists. They all know what's going to happen in the future. Or it sounds like they do. The way they talk, the confidence. And yet they don't know what's going on in the future, and nor do we. And yet we'll often say this about people, won't we? Or they'll never amount to anything. That's a phrase we hear. He's never going to be able to do that. These are all predictions about the future, and we can't know them. And so when we say them, even if we say them with real power and confidence, they're not actually true, because none of us can know what's going to happen in the future. The fifth one is what a person is. These are the labels that we stick on people. That person's lazy, this person's greedy. These are all related to somebody is to this or to that. Somebody who's lazy, we might say that they work too little. But again, it presupposes that there is an exact, correct amount of hours one should work. And we're the very person who has the answer to that. And so what other people think, what other people want, whether someone is to this or to that, what will happen in the future, what a person is, these are judgments. They're not truth. And the final one is what an event means. And we do that quite a lot, I think. And certainly when we were younger, we did that. But we'll say things like, because that happened, that must mean that I'm this. Because everybody got invited to the party except me, that must mean that I'm rubbish or unworthy or whatever. And so when we try and give meaning to a particular event, we think that we can see that meaning. It looks really obvious. We can see it. We know it. And yet we don't know it. Because once again, we can't know what other people are thinking and what other people want. And so there's 6 things there that will often drive us with real certainty that we know this, that we saw this. And yet we can never get inside somebody else's mind. And these things that we think of as knowledge, as facts, are actually just judgments, just guesses, just speculation, just supposition. Each of these things are interpretations of what we see, not the thing that we see in itself. And so whenever you think you know what another person is thinking, or what another person wants, or that somebody's doing to this or to that, or what will happen in the future, or pinning a label on a person about what they are, or ascribing a meaning to an event, that must mean that I'm this. All of these are just judgments and guesses. And so it's interesting to be able to note that, because what it opens up, once we realise that they're just judgments and guesses, what it opens up is other truths. That we will look at the world and we will see these things and know these things, or think we do, and assign a real rigid truth upon the events that we saw. And yet when we realise we can't know these things and we didn't actually see what they thought or what they want or what's going to happen in the future or what the event really means for us in terms of who we are, it allows us to survey the infinite number of other possible guesses and judgments and inverted commas truths. And so if you find this helpful, please share it around so other people can find it helpful too. You can subscribe to the podcast wherever you get them. You can watch them on sliceoftherapy.com, and you could work with me, Alun Parry, one-on-one. And you'll find me at liverpoolpsychotherapy.co.uk. And thanks for listening, and I'll see you again tomorrow.